When I stepped out of the car, I didn't expect a welcome party. But I also didn't expect the silence. The kind that screams louder than words. My parents didn't even look my way. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't really invited, I was tolerated. And if you've ever been the one who shows up to the family table just to be reminded you don't belong, then keep listening. This isn't just one of those revenge stories. This one hurts before it heals. I parked my car halfway down the gravel road, just beyond the main entrance to Rose Hall Estate, where my cousin Lindsay's wedding was being held. The sun had just dipped below the mountains, casting a golden haze over the manicured lawns and string-lit patio. People in pastel dresses and tailored suits laughed and clinked glasses like they'd never heard of heartbreak, like no one had ever told them they weren't enough. I sat in the driver's seat for a full 2 minutes. The engine was off, but I could still hear it ticking, or maybe that was just my own pulse. The wedding invite had come in late, handwritten but rushed. Hope you'll make it, Grace. It's been forever. Mum and Dad still talk about you, RSVP if possible. No, we miss you. No, can't wait to see you. Just a formality wrapped in sugar. Still, I came. Because a part of me, the same stubborn part that once believed if I just tried harder, worked longer, stayed quiet enough, thought maybe this time they'd see me. When I walked toward the venue, my boots crunched lightly on the cobblestone path. I was dressed well enough, simple black dress, neat hair, even a touch of lipstick, but I already knew it wouldn't be enough. Not for them. Through the glass doors of the ballroom, I saw them. My parents, Fred and Loretta Whitmore. Dad was deep in conversation with a family friend from the country club. Mum was smiling, champagne flute in hand, her pearl earrings catching the light. And in the middle of it all, my younger brother, Dr. Keith Whitmore, golden boy of the Whitmore name, kissing babies, shaking hands, basking in attention like he was the one getting married. No one saw me arrive. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't care. I stepped inside, the scent of hydrangeas and roasted lamb washing over me. I barely made it 3 steps when I heard it. "Look who showed up," Mom's voice. Not warm, not surprised, just inconvenienced. Fred barely turned his head. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "Thought she was still off backpacking or whatever it is she calls work these days." No hug, no greeting, no, "How have you been, Grace?" Just that same old undertone, like my presence was a smudge on their perfect picture. I found a table near the back. Not the family section, obviously. That one was full. I sat down, folded my hands, and reminded myself why I came. To show support for Lindsay, that's all. But even she didn't come over. I saw her glance my way once during the toasts, then immediately look away like I was something she forgot to mention to the photographer. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. When the family photo session started, the photographer, clearly working off a list, read names aloud. "Whitmore family, please. Fred, Loretta, Keith, Lindsay, Aunt Maggie." Someone leaned in and said something to him. He nodded and looked up. "Oh, correction. Just immediate family, please." My chest didn't tighten. It collapsed. And still I stayed seated. Still I smiled politely when a waiter offered me a refill. Still I watched them laugh under twinkle lights while I wondered how it's possible to feel this invisible. Until I heard my mum's voice again, this time a little louder, and absolutely not caring who heard her. "You know, I almost didn't invite her. Every time she shows up, it's like bringing a shadow to the party, just so heavy, doesn't belong anymore." It wasn't said in anger. It was worse. It was casual, like I was an outdated handbag someone kept out of guilt, and that was it. I stood up, quietly enough not to cause a scene, and slipped out onto the side balcony. The night air was cooler, quieter. I leaned against the railing and stared out at the hills beyond. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I stepped foot in that town. Since I'd let myself believe maybe things could be different, that maybe with time, people soften, hearts open, bridges rebuild, But some bridges were never meant to be rebuilt. Some were burned on purpose. I reached into my clutch and pulled out my secure phone. No one knew I still carried it. It didn't ring or buzz. Only one person could reach me on that line, and tonight they had. A simple message glowed on the screen. Target confirmed, proceeding with placement, awaiting directive. I didn't reply. Not yet, because for all the revenge stories people watch for the thrill, mine wasn't about revenge. It was about finally being seen. And in less than 24 hours, they'd see all of me, whether they were ready or not. The band started playing something soft and pretty, you know, that generic instrumental jazz that's supposed to make rich people feel sophisticated. I stood on the edge of the ballroom, half in shadow, watching as my family clustered near the stage. The wedding coordinator clicked her pen and checked her list. "Now, we'll have the Whitmore family come up for a formal portrait with the bride and groom," she announced. And then, the moment, the one I already knew was coming. Loretta Whitmore, my mother, raised her hand like she was ordering another glass of champagne and said, just loud enough for the mic to pick it up, "Exclude Grace, please. She's not really part of this." No hesitation, no glance back to see if I'd heard, like I was just an unfortunate guest who accidentally matched the dress code. The photographer froze. The entire left side of the ballroom went silent. I didn't flinch, but my fingers dug into the stem of the wine glass until it nearly cracked. My father, ever the diplomat when the cameras were near, added helpfully, "She hasn't been around, you know how it is, overseas and all that. She's barely family at this point." Barely family. You ever been called that? Not disowned, not cut off, just quietly erased, like a smudge on the corner of the photo. They herded everyone onto the stage like some grand performance. The lights were warm, the laughter was real. And I stood in the dark, a ghost at a party I was technically invited to, but never meant to be part of. And listen, I know what some of you are thinking. Why didn't I say something? Why didn't I storm up there and grab the mic and ruin the show? Because I've learned that the loudest thing you can do is stay completely still while everyone expects you to fall apart. "You okay?" a voice whispered. I turned. It was Alyssa, the bride's college roommate. We barely knew each other, but apparently even strangers could read humiliation when it dripped off you like sweat. I nodded, smiled. "Yeah, I'm good." Lie. I wasn't good. I was on fire, on the inside at least. And still, I watched the toast. I watched the way my mother dabbed her eyes during the speech about family loyalty and those who never gave up. I watched my dad squeeze my brother Keith's shoulder like he was a war hero, and I waited, because I knew what they didn't. While they were toasting, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down. Surveillance entry successful. Primary subject now in position. Primary subject, that's what they called him in the report. But I didn't need the file to know. I'd seen it in his emails. He used his credentials, the same ones he'd lectured me about earning with honour, to access a restricted satellite server 6 times in the last 3 months. Leaked tech data, patterns, routing codes, and then, most damning of all, the bank transfer logs, payments, offshores, Fred Whitmore, my father. But I didn't confront him, not yet, because that night wasn't about revenge, it was about revelation, about letting the lies breathe their last, right there on the dance floor under the glow of 9,000 chandeliers. Someone near me muttered, "Who's that woman? She looks like someone important, but nobody seems to notice her." That made me smile. For real this time, because I'd spent a decade training to be invisible, and tonight they were going to see me whether they wanted to or not. From the stage, Keith raised his champagne glass. "And finally," he said, his voice rich and smooth, "I want to thank my incredible family. Mum, Dad, you're my rock. And to my sister Lindsay, the true light of this family." A beat. Then just as quickly he added with a smirk, "Oh, and Grace. Wherever you're hiding, thanks for not causing a scene this time. We all appreciate it." Laughter rippled through the room, and maybe this is the part where you, the one watching this, felt something twist in your chest, like maybe someone once thanked you for your silence instead of your presence. If you've ever been the one they hoped wouldn't show up, I want to hear it. Not because misery loves company, but because maybe silence stops hurting once someone else says, "I felt that too." I left the ballroom before dessert was served. The cool night air hit me like a second skin. I walked to the far corner of the venue where my team had eyes. Colonel Freeman was already on site. He nodded once. No salute. Not here. Not yet. "Target is within radius," he said quietly. "We move on your mark, General." And for the first time that night, I said something out loud, not to him, not to the team, but to the universe maybe, or to myself. Let's show them what a disgrace looks like. I don't remember walking back into the ballroom, just the sound of my heels on polished marble. Click, click. Too steady, too calm for what was about to happen. The room had moved on. Toasts were done. People were dancing now. Aunts swaying with uncles. Kids sneaking cookies. My mother laughing with someone from the country club about how expensive the floral centerpieces were. And my father standing near the head table swirling bourbon like he hadn't just publicly disowned his daughter in front of 200 people. That's the part that always got me. They didn't just push me out quietly. They needed everyone to see me as the failure, needed the crowd to agree, she's not one of us. They did it with smiles and champagne. That kind of cruelty doesn't come from rage. It comes from comfort, entitlement. But that night I wasn't the one left standing in the shadows. Not anymore. Colonel Freeman's voice was low in my earpiece. "Perimeter secured. We've got visuals. Standing by." My hand was steady as I raised it slightly. A small motion, invisible to the crowd, but very clear to my team. "Go," I said. It happened fast. The music stopped mid-song, a sharp digital click that left the room echoing with silence. A second later, 2 of the back entrances slammed shut, magnetic locks humming into place. The main front doors swung inward and a 6-person tactical unit in dark navy uniforms entered in perfect formation. No masks, no drawn weapons, but the presence alone made the room shift, the way water moves before a wave crashes. Whispers rose like smoke. What's going on? Is this a drill? My cousin clutched her new husband's arm. My mum's face went pale under her blush. And then came him. Colonel Cole Freeman. Full dress uniform. Clean, direct. No nonsense. He walked through the parted crowd like he'd done it 1,000 times before. And then he stopped directly in front of me. Loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, "General Whitmore, Operation Breachstone is in position, awaiting your orders." The sound that followed was nothing. The kind of nothing that hurts your ears. I didn't look at anyone, not yet. I just nodded once. "Seal the exits." My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered across the floor. Now people were panicking. Half the room stood. Some guests tried to head toward the bathrooms, locked. One guy asked the DJ if it was part of the show. My brother Keith came stumbling over, his tie loose, his voice sharp. "Grace, what the hell is going on? Is this some messed up stunt? Are you insane?" I finally turned to face him, calm, controlled. "No, Keith, I'm not crazy. I just stopped pretending to be nothing so you could stay comfortable." My father pushed through the crowd now, stepping between me and the colonel. His face was red, not with fear, not yet, but with rage. "You brought federal agents to a wedding. What kind of spectacle are you trying to make? You think this'll make us respect you?" And for a second I saw it. The panic flickering under his voice. Because he knew. He'd known since the first file went missing, since the first bounce of bank transfers into offshore accounts. Since the first time I asked about Project Alderline and he told me he couldn't recall. He'd always known this moment might come. He just didn't expect me to be the one commanding it. I looked him dead in the eye. Fred Whitmore, under Article 47 of the National Security Act, you are hereby detained for suspicion of espionage and unauthorized transmission of classified intel. The crowd gasped. My mother screamed. Someone knocked over a table trying to back away. And Fred laughed. You'd arrest your own father? He spat. You're so desperate to be important, you'd destroy this family? I didn't blink. You already destroyed it. I'm just cleaning up the wreckage. Colonel Freeman nodded to his men. They moved quickly, not aggressive, not brutal, but with certainty. 2 agents took my father's arms. He didn't resist, just kept shouting as they led him through the crowd. You'll regret this, Grace. You think they'll ever really accept you? You'll always be the outsider, in their eyes and mine. I let him talk. Let him throw every last piece of venom he had left, and when the doors shut behind him, I stood still, in the silence. I knew what everyone in that room was thinking. Some were scared, some were stunned, but a few, a very small few, looked at me differently now, not with pity, not with disdain, but like maybe, just maybe, they saw me. You ever have someone call you a disgrace so often you start to believe it, and then one day you find out that they were the problem all along, not you? If that hits something in you, say it out loud, write it somewhere, or drop it in the comments. Not for me, for you. Because sometimes the only way out of being erased is to rewrite the whole damn page. The ballroom emptied fast after they took my father away. You'd think there was a fire, the way people grabbed their coats and cleared out. Some didn't even bother with goodbyes, just tight-lipped glances and muttered apologies that weren't really meant for me. I stood there while the staff cleared champagne flutes and swept up the shattered glass. The music was off, the lights too bright now, like everyone had suddenly realized this wasn't a celebration anymore, it was the scene of something much messier. Colonel Freeman approached, voice low and steady. Target secured. Interrogation will begin at Yo 300. We'll debrief in DC, you good? I nodded. Yeah, thanks, Cole. He held my eyes a second longer than necessary. A gesture of respect, but also of concern. Then he turned and walked away. And suddenly I was alone again. Not just in the ballroom, in the emotional fallout no one warns you about. My mother didn't leave right away. She sat by the head table, clutching her empty wineglass like a lifeline, eyes fixed on the place where my father had stood. When I approached, she didn't look at me. You humiliated us. Her voice was cold, controlled, no tears, not yet. I said nothing at first. Because how do you answer that? How do you respond when someone's more outraged by the public embarrassment than the betrayal itself? I finally said, he was selling defense intel to offshore accounts. He put American lives in danger, children, civilians, soldiers. She flinched, just a little. Then she said quieter, but you didn't have to do it here, in front of everyone. You could have warned us. I blinked, stunned. Warn you? She looked at me then, really looked, but not like a mother seeing her daughter, like a woman staring down a stranger. He's your father, Grace. And I let the words hang there. Because that's what always happens, right? When it's your father, it's supposed to mean something, even when he sold secrets, even when he sold you out long before he touched classified files. You said it yourself, I whispered. I'm not part of this family, remember? You said that in front of 200 people, just before dessert. Her eyes dropped, still no tears. But something cracked, barely visible. A muscle in her jaw trembled. He was your father, she said again, like repeating it might change anything. I took a deep breath. No, tonight he was my target. An hour later, I sat in a makeshift debriefing room. Not a war room, not a military base, just one of the empty bridal suites the venue had cleared for us. Someone had dragged in a long folding table. There were bottled waters, a legal pad I didn't touch. The window still had lace curtains. Everything smelled like roses and hairspray. Keith came in last. He looked tired, not angry, not defensive, just exhausted. He sat down across from me, didn't speak right away. Finally, he asked, "How long have you known?" I looked him in the eye. About 7 months. We traced the leak to a small network. Dad's name came up 6 weeks ago. He shook his head. Not like he didn't believe me. Like he did believe me and hated it. I always thought you were wasting your life, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Thanks. No, I thought you were hiding. From yourself. From expectations. But you were protecting us. I wasn't hiding, I said. I was just somewhere you didn't want to look. He nodded slowly. Then he asked the question no one else had the guts to say. Do you regret it? Turning him in? I leaned back. Did I? I remembered the look on Dad's face when they zip-tied his wrists. Not fear, not guilt, just fury. At me, at being outplayed by his daughter. The same daughter he once called dead weight. The same daughter he told a boardroom full of men was too sensitive for law school. I looked at my brother, and I told him the truth. I don't regret choosing the truth, but I regret that it had to be me. Later that night, I walked alone down the driveway to my rental car. The parking lot was mostly empty. My heels echoed louder than they had earlier. Before I got in, I turned back. The venue stood quiet now, lights dimmed, voices gone. I pulled out my phone, checked the latest report. Whitmore scheduled for federal hearing Monday. 2 charges, holding without bail. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I deleted the text because I was done tracking the past. I don't know if my mother ever forgave me. I don't know if she even believes the evidence, but I know this. That night, I didn't arrest my father because I wanted to prove I was strong. I did it because it was my job, because for once being the outsider meant I was the only one willing to do what needed to be done, even if it hurt, especially because it hurt. Have you ever had to do the right thing, knowing it would cost you the only people you ever wanted to impress? Drop it in the comments if you have, or if you wish you'd had the strength to. Because sometimes surviving the fallout is the mission. 2 days later, I was back in DC, sitting across from Deputy Director Marshall in a windowless conference room buried under 6 layers of security. No chandelier, no string lights, just grey walls, filtered air, and the low hum of a fluorescent panel overhead. He slid a file across the table. You're a ghost now, Grace. The media's already halfway to naming you as the mystery woman behind the arrest. Vaughn's people are sniffing around. We can relocate you, change your identity, start fresh. I looked down at the folder. It was thick. A whole new life, a new name, a new city, another basement to disappear into. All because I did the one thing nobody else had the stomach to do, stop a traitor wearing a tie at my family's table. You have another option, he said. His voice shifted, lower, slower. Section Chief, counterintelligence, public-facing, no more undercover, no more aliases, but very, very visible. I didn't say anything right away. I just stared at the man who now held my future in a beige file jacket. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment, the kind of night where everything's quiet except for your thoughts. On the wall across from me were the few things I'd let myself keep, my commissioning photo from West Point, the framed letter from the president thanking my unit after Operation Mistral, a track medal from high school, one my father used to brag about before I ruined my future by going into the army. I remembered something Keith had said after the wedding, something that stuck harder than I wanted to admit. I always thought you were hiding, but you were protecting us. And the thing is, he wasn't wrong. But I wasn't just protecting them, I was protecting me too, from the disappointment of being seen and still not being accepted. The next morning I walked into Marshall's office, crisp uniform, polished shoes, hair tied back with precision. I saluted. I'll take the promotion. He smiled, just slightly. Good, the world's going to know your name, Grace. Make sure they get it right. And they did, at least the parts they were allowed to. CNN ran a special, not with my full title, of course, but the headline read, Former Black Sheep of Prominent Family Leads Federal Operation in Espionage Case. Local outlets picked it up. Wedding shock turned federal sting. Even the Washington Post published a long-form story about the emotional complexity of arresting a parent for the sake of national security, but none of that compared to what I saw on my mother's social feed a week later. She'd uploaded an old family photo, one from before everything broke, captioned it, "We all make mistakes. Some are harder to admit than others, but sometimes the one we misunderstood ends up saving everything." She didn't tag me, didn't message, didn't even like any of the comments flooding in, but she posted it. And for my mother, that was basically a public apology in all caps. Emma, my cousin, texted me, "You just became the main character of every revenge movie ever." I laughed. "This wasn't revenge." "Okay, fine," she replied. "Then it was a documentary, one that needs a sequel." 3 weeks later, I was invited back to Asheville, not for a wedding, for a panel at the local university. Women in National Security. I almost didn't go, but then I did, and this time I didn't sneak in through the back. When I entered the venue, people stood. Students, veterans, faculty, even my former high school principal, and when I finished the talk, they lined up to ask questions, shake my hand, thank me, not for surviving, for serving. But the moment that broke me didn't come from any podium. It came after the event when Keith found me in the parking lot. He pulled something out of his pocket. It was small, folded, worn at the edges. My senior year photo, the one where I wore my ROTC uniform. "I never threw it away," he said. "Even when Mom said you were gone for good, I kept it." I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. I just hugged him hard. And for the first time, he hugged me back without awkwardness or apology. We stood there for a long while, no medals, no uniforms, no cameras, just siblings, still standing. Have you ever gone so long without being believed that when someone finally sees you, it doesn't feel real? If you've ever had to prove your worth in silence, in the shadows. I see you. Really. I do. 6 months later, I was back in Asheville. Again. Not for a mission, not for a sting, but for something simple. Emma's engagement party. This time there were no tactical teams, no sealed exits, no hidden mics or encrypted briefings, just music playing low through rented speakers, champagne in fluted glasses, and paper lanterns swinging in the wind like they were trying to remember how to float. And this time I didn't walk in through the back. When I stepped onto the patio, I saw it, the photo wall. Dozens of pictures clipped to twine with tiny clothespins, baby pictures, graduation shots, awkward prom poses, blurry family beach trips. And in the middle, centered, not hidden, was one of me. Dress uniform, medals glinting. The caption beneath it read, "Aunt Grace, strongest person I know." I just stared at it for a second, because part of me still didn't believe they saw me, not really. Emma hugged me like I wasn't fragile, like I hadn't missed a decade of birthdays and backyard barbecues. "Do you forgive us?" she asked, pulling back. I smiled. Not the fake one, the real kind. "You were kids. The adults should have known better." She nodded, didn't argue, didn't try to defend what happened. That, more than anything, meant something. Inside, I found my mother near the buffet table, rearranging hors d'oeuvres like it was a strategy exercise. She looked up when she saw me, didn't flinch, didn't smile either, but she stepped forward. "You look strong," she said, "not like someone who needs our approval anymore." That was the closest I'd get to an apology, and maybe, after all this time, it was enough. Toward the end of the night, someone called for a group picture. Keith gestured toward me. "Come on, sis, you're family now." I raised an eyebrow. "Now?" He grinned. "Fine, again, still." So I stood with them, not because I needed to prove anything, but because this time I was choosing to stand, not to be accepted, to be present. When I got back to DC the following week, the office was quiet. Everyone had gone home. I walked the empty halls of the counterintelligence division like someone walking through old memories, not haunted, just aware. In my office, next to the framed letter from the president and the unit plaque, I added something new, a simple picture. Me, Keith, Emma, even Mum. No titles, no uniforms, no mission, just people. Imperfect, but trying. That night, before I turned out the light, I whispered something I hadn't said out loud in years. You're okay now. Not because everything was fixed, but because I had stopped needing them to see me, to believe in who I already knew I was. Sometimes the most painful part of being abandoned isn't that people leave. It's that they act like you were never there to begin with. But I'm still here, and maybe so are you. If you've ever sat through a family dinner feeling like an outsider, if you've ever been the one people introduce with the disclaimer, she's doing something in DC, I don't know what exactly, then this one was for you. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like the invisible one, or tell me where you're watching from. Because this space, this story, it's for people like us, who survived the silence and learned how to speak anyway.